It's going to be really tough. And Eric Spoelstra talked about this today at his press conference, in which he was, I think, guys, he would have rather been anywhere on the face of the earth than visiting with the media. He had a pretty intense edginess to him. But on this, he perked up because it's going to be a real challenge for him. And I think the short answer is I don't think they can double him. He's too good of a passer. We know that Bam is 6'9", and Jokic is almost 7 feet tall. He's 6'11", and Nikola is such an incredible passer. I think you're going to throw Bam at him, and you're going to understand that Jokic is going to score 30 or 35 or 40 or hell, who knows, 45 points. And you're going to do everything in your power if you're Miami to shut down Jamal Murray, to shut down Michael Porter Jr., to make sure like a pretty good supporting cast around those guys don't contribute. And it's Jokic is the only guy who beats you. I could be wrong because Spoelstra was keeping his cards pretty close to the vest. But Jokic's passing ability is so remarkable and he's so unique, and the offense really runs through him, his vision plus his size. I think if you double him more than a little bit, he's going to burn you every time. It's a great question because my brother and I, we pool resources for our biggest gambling bets, and we were discussing this today, and we had this exact conversation, and my answer to him with my money and our money was, let's not bet on anybody who's a Denver Nugget that's not Jokic. I think it has to be Jokic. But if it's not, it is Jamal Murray, and the number's pretty good, and the argument, and this is something Spoelstra brought up today too, Jamal Murray has literally scored in his career 50 points in a playoff game. He is capable. Doesn't mean he can do it in the heat of a severe challenge, especially for what they can do defensively. But there's a world where Jamal Murray goes off and has some sort of incredible 55-point game. The series is small, right? Maybe it's a 4-game sweep. And so those numbers, that game sort of pumps the numbers a little bit, and he averages some remarkable points per game, has a bunch of assists, plays really well, and he sneaks it out. But if I'm betting my money and I'm betting that Denver's going to win the series, I'm probably betting on Jokic every time.
Bill, why does everybody think that Miami is going to be stupid enough to play zone on Denver?
I think because we saw it so much against Boston, and it became something that worked for Miami so incredibly well. But you're right; they're not going to go. They're not going to go zone. I mean, look, I don't know because Eric Spoelstra is such a unique thinker. Maybe there's a version of that he constructs that we're not thinking of. But I think the reality is that Denver has too much offense, too many shooters. You guys brought up MPJ, Michael Porter Jr. I mean, the guy is at least, maybe not in volume, but he is one of the most talented three-point shooters in the NBA. You're not going to be able to go zone. And the thing that the Heat are going to be challenged by is they don't have the height, the width, the athleticism to combat some of these guys. So there aren't any good options. But I'm with you. They're not going to roll zone. I don't think they're going to double Jokic very much. I think they're just going to understand that they're going to have to go face-to-face and overcome the odds one-on-one the way they've overcome the odds. They'll tell you at every step of this postseason, every facet that they faced.
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr., just watching him play, when this guy's healthy, we've been begging for that for years, and we finally got this opportunity. I know it's a long shot. I did bet him 20-1 to be the highest point scorer throughout the entire series. There's a reason why it's 20-1, but I just think that if I put a little sprinkle on that, just given sort of the matchup and the opportunity they have there. But you know, what does he bring that's so unique to this team that makes it so when Denver goes into this and says, we've already got 2 stars, everybody's talking about Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, but there's going to be a lot of attention on them. He can change things completely and make it a nightmare for Miami.
I like that MPJ bet. I mean, and he talked about this, Porter Jr., today. His entire career, this was a kid who was a superstar, right? High school, his year at Missouri and college when he wasn't injured. I mean, this was a guy who was going to be a top 3 pick, who always had the ball in his hands, who was known for his offensive explosiveness. And we know he had the injury in college, so he fell really far in the draft to Denver. It was a project. He took him a while to get in the rotation for Michael Malone. He had to play more defense and rebound more. So they've really turned him in, and he discussed this. He's a role player. That's his job on this team. He might be the most offensively explosive, high upside, call him a role player, call him a number 3. He's sort of a hybrid player in the NBA. So if they do double Jokic, or Jokic just decides that he's going to be a facilitator, if they do throw their best defensive players and secondary presence on Jamal Murray, which they might, you have a guy, Michael Porter Jr., who's not just a great three-point shooter and might have a lot of open looks. He's the kind of guy that, at least theoretically in an alternate universe, is the best player on a bad team. And that ability to score, he can score off the ball. He's got a better handle than people think. He's remarkably athletic. We know that he can shoot. He's big. He's long. This is a guy who was supposed to be destined to be a 25-point-per-game player for a team, leading a team. And the role that he found with this particular team means he does other things, but he is more than capable. He has the talent in him to score 35 points a game if the situation presents itself.
I know there's the altitude, which does concern me a little bit, like the adjustment there, but they have been there. I mean, everybody knows they flew right from Boston to Denver. And so they've gotten used to it. They practiced yesterday, I saw, around, 4:30, 5:30 p.m. My hope is that Miami comes out blazing in the first half. Maybe they're only down a point. Maybe they could take an early first-half lead. And then I'm going to have the biggest bet of the NBA season on Denver in the second half because I think they'll make the right adjustments, and I don't think Miami will be able to keep up as we get later on in that game. Because they just played a 7-game series, and Denver's been off for, 10 days now?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's the look. Denver second half, over in the game for me, and Michael Porter Jr. over on his points. Anything else? I don't know, man. I want to wait and see a game, maybe even 2 games in the series. Didn't expect the Heat to be here, obviously.
But it doesn't mean that everybody's going to have a good series. And I think somebody to fade in the NBA Finals, and it's more going to be just about the fact he's going to get worn out, Bam Adebayo. We saw him tail off at the end of that series. He's worn down after another 7-game series, grinded out against Boston. Now he's going to be dealing with Nikola Jokic. And I understand they're going to have some help. It's not just going to be him the entire time, but he's going to get banged around, pushed around, and it's going to make it that much more difficult on the other side of things, where I think anything offensively with him, you start looking at unders because he could just get exceptionally tired. Oh, by the way, and we will get into why this is going to be a major factor in this, guys are going to be sucking wind on Miami, at least in Game 1 in this series.
I don't understand it. It's interesting.
Dude, would you even, okay, if you were I'd still consider Monty Williams probably one of the top coaching candidates. Guy got a team to the NBA Finals. Whether you think he's a great coach or not, there is demand for him. Do you really want that Pistons job?
I changed my mind.
Okay.
I've unlocked what is going on. Okay, this is why I believe.
You got the key, creaked open the door like the sweat chamber?
It was like 2 different opinions in my head had converged into a boxing match, and one won.
The perfect storm of opinions.
Yes. Okay, so the
which
reason.
Which one came out on top?
Okay, so I think it actually does make sense. Here's why.
All right.
1, if you're Monty Williams, your biggest attribute is defining a culture. Your biggest attribute is coming into a losing franchise and turning them into respectable. That is what Monty Williams did for the Phoenix Suns. He comes in, they're a bubble team. They go, 8-0 in the bubble, but before that, they were, absolutely terrible. Nobody thought they were going to do anything. They were basically saying that Devin Booker was just floundering there. Monty Williams comes in with Chris Paul, and all of a sudden, they start winning games. They become the very next year a team that goes to the finals.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen for Detroit, but what you know is that Monty Williams can establish culture with young players. If you are Monty Williams, what is the draw for you? Well, it's the Will Hardy treatment. It's no pressure to win anytime soon. It is doing the thing that you do best, which is, again, to establish the culture. And you force Detroit to give you a long-term deal like Will Hardy got, maybe a 5-6-year deal. 5 years, $50 million. He'll be the second highest paid coach in the league for doing exactly what he does best. Taking a team that's mediocre and not very good with a lot of potential and finding a way to realize their potential.
A lot of people that I've talked with on our hits and whatnot the last 2 weeks, they're like, well, next year I'm going to take a shot, because I would always laugh, especially when we first started the network and somebody would come on and they'd be like, I really like the Timberwolves 125-1, and I'd be like, okay, maybe they win 50 games, but they're not going to beat the Warriors. They're not going to beat LeBron in a 7-game series. Every year I look at 4 teams and I'm like, okay, these 4 teams are capable of actually winning the championship. I don't think we're ever going to see this again. Maybe in 20 years. Because the Heat did this year as an 8 seed, I'm not playing a bunch of long shots. Maybe Cleveland in the East, but I think everything goes back to normal next year.
Murray or Butler to outscore the other?
Man.
Would you rather?
They're both very inconsistent scorers. That's what I think is very interesting. Jamal Murray has higher highs than Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Butler has gone nuclear so far in this playoffs. I think I'd take Jamal Murray just because. No, I switched my mind. I'm going to take Jimmy Butler because I think Jimmy will probably be on Jamal Murray at times.
I'd go Jamal Murray in this, but God, it is close because you're right. You can have the 19, 20-point game, and you can. The difference with me, though, is that Jamal Murray's the better 3-point shooter, and he can have his Murray flurries. Plus, I love the name Murray Flurry, the fact that that's been a thing now in Denver.
McMurray.
Yeah, McFlurry McMurray. So
Yeah.
I would go with the fact that he can just go out there and light up Miami in the fourth quarter. Where it was. I don't remember which game it was when he went off and had like 25 in the fourth. I was like, he's not going over his point. Oh my God, he's going way over.
I remember that game because I had the under.
Yeah,
and
I
he
had the over.
Individually hit the over in that game just by himself.
Just in the quarter.
Yeah, I hate to be boring. I'm going to agree with you guys. I want to be the Skip Bayless to your Stephen A. or your Shannon Sharp.
You're careful, because then now Shannon Sharp's leaving.
Time's running out.
So you don't want to be him, actually.
Yeah, I better be careful. But I agree,
runs
man.
people out the building.
The thing with Murray, though, like if you bet his props or you watch these games, really just the entire Denver team is he could just, like you said, he just turns it on. He could go off in the second half for 25+. Jimmy kind of like kills you slowly and methodically. And he does it usually at the charity stripe because Jimmy Butler gets a better whistle than Giannis or any other, like even MVP in the league. All he does is put his head down, goes to the rim, and he gets every single whistle. Missoula, Boston was bitching about that in the last series, but Jimmy does get a lot of calls. But I'm going to go with Murray with you guys.